There is a root vegetable of such immense value that a Roman emperor once demanded it as tribute in place of gold. It is a plant characterized by an intense sweetness that for centuries served as Europe's primary definition of sugar. It sustained monks through the harsh, starving months of winter, graced the tables of royalty, and offered a flavor profile so intricate that a 17th century agriculturalist described it as the whitest, sweetest, and most pleasant of all roots. Yet if you visit a supermarket today, you will not find it. You won't even find a designated shelf where it once resided. This is not a tale of a crop that failed because it was weak. Rather, it was abandoned for the exact opposite reason. It was too sweet, too complex, and too wild for an industrial food system that prioritizes uniformity above everything else. We exchanged an emperor's delicacy for an orange stick designed to fit perfectly into a plastic bag. This is the story of Skirit, Sium Cicerum, the forgotten sugar of the earth and the choice that struck it from history. To grasp what was lost, one must first understand the nature of Skirit. It represents a botanical anomaly in the context of the modern vegetable garden. Most contemporary roots we consume, such as carrots, parsnips, and turnips, are biennials. You plant them, they grow for a single season, you harvest them, and they die. It is a cycle requiring constant labor. Skirit, however, plays the long game. Once you plant it, it establishes a permanent colony. Beneath the soil, it does not produce a single, neat taproot like a carrot. Instead, it erupts into a cluster of twisted white fingers, each roughly 6 to 8 inches long. It resembles a hidden treasure cache, more than a common vegetable. This root system acts as an energy battery. Because the plant is designed to survive brutal winters, it packs these roots with intense concentrations of natural sugars that serve as biological antifreeze. But this is about more than just survival. The data reveals exactly what we sacrificed. In 1989, researchers in Perpignan conducted a comprehensive nutritional analysis at the first international symposium on the diversification of vegetable crops, with findings published in Acta Horticulturae. The numbers were startling. When you strip away the marketing, the modern orange carrot is mostly water, about 88%. Skirit is an entirely different beast, boasting an average dry matter content of 16%. This means that with every bite, you are receiving 60% more actual sustenance and mineral density compared to the watered-down crops found in modern supermarkets. Then there are the sugars. A standard grocery store carrot averages about 4.7 grams of sugar per 100 grams. Skirit completely obliterates that figure, clocking in between 10 and 15 grams. Crucially, according to the study, 65% of Skirit's dry matter is pure sucrose, the sweetest form of natural sugar. This was no accident. The name Skirit originates from the Middle English skirwit, meaning white root. However, across Europe, its true nature was well known. The Danish called it Sukerrod. The Germans called it Zuckerwurzel, and the Dutch referred to it as Suikerwortel. All of these translate to the same thing, sugar root. While we are taught to eat carrots for health, they only offer about 5.9 millimolars of vitamin C per serving. Skirit delivers upwards of 25 millimolars, more than 4 times the antioxidant power. Furthermore, the colder the weather becomes, the sweeter the root gets. It is nearly indestructible by frost, thriving in zones where delicate annuals would perish. This resilience made Skirit a celebrity in the ancient world. This was not merely peasant food for the starving, it was high cuisine. The Roman Emperor Tiberius, a man who could have anything in the known world brought to his table, was obsessed with Skirit. According to Pliny the Elder in his Natural History, Tiberius refused to eat the varieties grown in warm Italian soil. He demanded his supply be imported directly from the cooler climate of the Rhineland. He did not pay for it in gold, he paid in power. He demanded Skirit as tribute from Germanic tribes, taxing conquered peoples not in currency, but in roots. To the elite of Rome, this was not just a vegetable, it was a confection. For centuries following the fall of Rome, Skirit held its ground. In medieval Europe, it became the secret weapon of the monastic garden. The monks, the master agriculturalists of their era, valued it for a specific reason: the hungry gap. In the agricultural calendar, there is a terrifying window in late winter when stored grain runs low, apples rot, and new spring greens have not yet sprouted. This was the time when people starved. However, skirret could be dug up directly from the semi-frozen mud in March. It provided a burst of sugar and starch when the larder was empty. In 1390, the master cooks of King Richard II of England included it in the form of curry, the royal cookbook. They battered and fried it into sweet fritters or baked it into pies with chestnuts and marrow. In 1682, the agriculturalist John Worledge wrote that when boiled and served with butter, skirret was the sweetest, whitest, and most pleasant of roots. It was the bridge that carried communities from the dark of winter into the light of spring, reigning supreme for over 1,000 years. So how did a plant with such a royal pedigree vanish so completely? The downfall of skirret did not come from disease or pests. It resulted from a shift in human psychology triggered by the agricultural revolution of the 17th century. This was the era when farming moved away from subsistence, growing to eat, toward the market, growing to sell. Enter the orange carrot. Before the 1600s, carrots were purple, white or yellow, and often woody. But Dutch breeders began refining a strain that was distinctively orange, the color of the House of Orange, the ruling family of the Netherlands. They didn't just breed for color, they bred for geometry. The new Dutch carrot was straight, smooth, and uniform, a single tapering cone that could be pulled from the ground in one motion and wiped clean. It was the perfect unit of commerce. Skirret stood no chance against this visual revolution. In a market stall, the human eye is drawn to bright colors and clean lines. The twisted, gnarly fingers of skirret looked messy and primitive next to the sleek, modern carrot. We began to eat with our eyes, prioritizing aesthetics over complexity of flavor. The carrot was the soldier of the Industrial Revolution, uniform and obedient. Skirret was the wild poet, complex, messy, and impossible to standardize. Beyond aesthetics, agriculture's scaling up collided with skirret's anatomy. Those clustered roots, the very thing that makes it so productive, are a nightmare for machinery. They trap dirt. You cannot run a cluster of skirret through an industrial tumble washer or a mechanical peeler. It requires a human hand to break the cluster and wash the soil from the crevices. When the tractor and the processing plant took over the farm, skirret was fired. It was deemed inefficient. The industrial food system is based on speed and volume, not flavor and nutrition. A crop that demands care and a human touch is a crop that has no future in a capitalist supply chain. Consequently, seed catalogs stopped carrying it, farmers stopped planting it, and within 2 generations, the emperor's root was relegated to botanical gardens and the memories of the very old. But here is the part that should provoke frustration. We are now spending billions of dollars trying to genetically engineer climate-resilient crops. We are trying to force industrial vegetables to survive changing weather patterns. Meanwhile, a perfectly adapted perennial vegetable that survived European winters for 1,000 years is growing wild in forgotten corners. Skirret thrives with minimal care. It self-propagates, survives frost, and stores energy through winter. The very traits that made skirret a failure for big agriculture make it a miracle for the home grower. Because it is perennial, you only buy the cedar crown once. To harvest, you simply dig up a mature clump, snap off the fattest white fingers for your kitchen, and put the crown back in the hole. It regrows. It is an infinite food hack. In the kitchen, the flavor is a revelation. It possesses the sweetness of a carrot with a nutty aromatic depth that hints of parsley and parsnip. It is sophisticated and it tastes like history. The story of skirret is a reminder that progress in agriculture often results in a loss of quality. We sacrifice the sweetest root in Europe for the convenience of a vegetable that is easy to peel. We allowed machines to dictate our diet, narrowing the vast biodiversity of the past to a handful of crops that fit neatly into a shipping crate. But we can choose to opt out of that system. Growing skirret today is an act of botanical rebellion. It is a rejection of supermarket aesthetics and a reclaiming of flavor. It is a statement that you are willing to get your hands dirty to taste something Emperor Tiberius valued more than gold. Skirret is still out there. Seed companies are slowly reintroducing it, and small-scale growers are experimenting with it. The knowledge is not completely lost. Most people simply do not know it exists. They have been conditioned to believe that food comes from industrial farms and grocery stores, wrapped in plastic and bred for shelf life instead of taste. If this story changed the way you look at the forgotten treasures of the earth, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. We are unearthing the history that the industrial world tried to bury. Help us spread this knowledge and geotrong the future. Some crops are too complex to standardize, and some treasures have been hiding in plain sight for 1,000 years, waiting for us to remember what an emperor once knew. The next vault of lost history opens soon,